So welcome everyone, welcome from Shure, welcome from Sound Ideas, welcome from Sun Infonet. Thank you Pramod and Roger for helping us to hook up this session. I know you guys have worked really hard. I think it'll be really good fun. Roger, say hi to everyone. Everyone can see you. Yeah, there's Roger behind the drum kit. Cool, cool. So awesome, let's get started. So Shure microphones, we're gonna do a drum miking demo today and also a listening session. Um, Firstly, we discuss a few things with regarding to choosing the correct microphone. Then we go into how to place microphones for drums, what are the best practices to place microphones for drums, and after that we do the listening session. And then we'll also tell you what microphones we have actually used on the drum kit today. So finding the right microphone, very important. You need to be aware of a microphone, whether it is dynamic and condenser. What are the benefits of using a dynamic? What are the benefits of using a condenser? Also, what are the drawbacks sometimes of using a dynamic or of using a condenser? This can only come with a little amount of experience and trial and error and trial from your part, both as a musician and as a sound engineer. Okay, the operating principle of dynamic mics, basically it's like a speaker. So there is like a diaphragm. The diaphragm is quite heavy, and to move that diaphragm, for example this mic that I'm talking into, it moves with my voice, with the wind, okay, that my voice creates, and that connects to a coil which moves between a magnet. And because that coil moves, the magnet generates a certain amount of current, and that current goes into a small circuit and then comes out from the XLR. Condenser mics work slightly differently. And one of the reasons why condenser mics are so much more responsive is because the diaphragm is made of a foil, a thin metal foil. Because it is so thin and so light, it is much more what do you call it, sensitive to sounds. So you'll normally find the transient response of condenser mics is far greater, but the one of the drawback is that they are very sensitive, and one of the benefits is also that it is very sensitive. So just choose the correct microphone in the correct place. These are typical polar patterns. So everything, Shure makes all microphones of various polar patterns except for this one, low bar. But we make all the others. So omnidirectional, bidirectional, cardioid, supercardioid, hyper, half cardioid, and subcardioid. And in fact, for today's demo, we are using an omnidirectional microphone. We are also using a bidirectional microphone. We are also using we are also using a supercardioid microphone. We are using a couple of cardioid microphones also. So various different polar pattern microphones is what we are using today. Okay. Firstly, kick drum and kick drum mic placement. One main thing is where do you place the microphone inside the kick, because the sound of the kick drum changes very drastically with where the microphone is placed. So as you can see here, we have different positions. So if you use a Beta 91, it needs to be like on this pillow kind of structure, and you keep it somewhere midway in the shell. Okay, if you have the microphone too close to the head, then you get a very clicky kind of sound. You don't get enough lows. But as you keep moving the microphone back, you start getting a lot of body and a lot of lows. But the further back that you use it, you start losing the point, so the edge, the click. Okay, so the best position actually to place it is somewhere in the middle to the end of the shell. Don't place it too much in the front, especially for a Beta 91. And also very often we see this, let me just change my pointer to a laser. So we usually see this as the setup for the Beta 52. But actually, if you take the Beta 52 inside the shell, where the Beta 91 is supposed to sit, you'll find the sound, it suddenly becomes very, very enjoyable. You get a good amount of punch, and you get just enough of click. So definitely try this position with the Beta 52 inside the shell. Now, if you're using a jazz kit or sometimes even a rock and roll kit where you don't have a hole in the skin, you can place the kick drum microphone adjoining to the skin. but make sure you leave at least about 2 or 3 inches of gap from the skin, because if it's too close, then the skin, in fact, because of vibration, may start touching the microphone, and that might give you some artifacts in the sound. Another quite a common thing to do is take the Beta 52 inside and put it in the same line as the Beta 91. So the benefit of this is that you don't have to deal with phasing issues. Okay, otherwise you need to time align the two mics. So if one is in, one is out, you have to time align the microphones. If you take both the microphones inside and try and get them as much in the same place as possible, then it reduces the phase dependency of the two microphones. So just try this trick. One trick that I'd seen was a Beta 52, and it was placed on the pillow right next to the Beta 91. Exactly like this. So how you see this Beta 91 here, right next to it was the Beta 52 in the same line. And I was quite impressed by the sound that was getting. Very little phase. The phase coherence was excellent, and it actually sounded great, because the correct place, honestly, for a Beta 52 is both at the hole, depending on the sound you're going for. Otherwise, inside the drum is also a good sound. Okay. When you put a pillow or something to dampen the heads, you need to be a little careful. Why? Because if the pillow is too thick, or if the carpet that you put inside is too thick, then you end up removing all the resonance of the kick drum. Yeah, so it becomes very boxy sounding. You don't get that boom, the low end boom that you expect to get from a 22-inch or a 20-inch kick drum. Okay. As far as the tuning, general rule is try not to over tune it with a key. What you can use is actually your finger, and just finger tighten the lock screws. Okay, tighten it as much as you want with the fingers, as much as you want, that you cannot go anymore. That is usually the correct point to stop. Okay, the thing is, if you over tighten the head, then again you start to lose the resonance. The thing with drums is you want the skin to move. Okay, so you don't want a tight, especially in the lower sounding drums. So like a gong drum, kick drum, floor tom, you don't want the skin to be too tight. You want the skin to be able to move. Because of that movement is where you get the low end punch from these instruments. So gong drum, even from Indian instruments, so like a low duff, low timbale, even djembe, actually, for an instance, does not sound too good when it's tuned very high. You need to be a little careful about that. And the various options from Shure for kick drum is the Beta 52, Beta 91, the PGA 52, the Beta 27, and the KSM 353, out of which some of these microphones we are using today. Next is snare drum and snare drum placement. When you have the snare drum mic very close to the skin, you get a decent amount of low frequency, and you get more tone from the snare, but you don't get a lot of the spring sound, like the crack of the springs. So the correct place to actually put it is about 2 to 3 inches away from the skin, pointing towards the center. That picture I'll show you in the next slide. And at that point, you actually get a much more balanced sound of tone. You get the crack also, and you get a good amount of, sorry for the spelling mistake, this presentation was made at 2 in the morning. Good amount of attack from the stick, not attach from the stick. Good amount of attack from the stick. You can blend the bottom mic to get a good amount of spring sound also. And generally for the snare, it's a good practice to compress a little bit. Depends on the musician, you can compress a little harder also. Another good way to mic up a snare is actually to use two mics from the top. So you can use one cardioid, you can use one dynamic and one condenser. So like a SM57 and a SM81, you can put it on the same stand and just bind them with tape, wrap them with tape. That's a good way, because then again, you don't have a problem of phase, and you get a good amount of spring sound, the higher sound attack from the top condenser mic. It's a good option. So various options for snare drum is SM57, I don't have to mention, but the combination of an SM57 and an SM81 together on the snare is actually a very, very good sound. You can also try the SM27, the Beta 98 AMP, Beta 98 DS, the KSM 313. So the 313 is more for studio. The PGA 57 and the PGA 56. Okay, so these are the various mics. This is the PGA 181. This is the PGA 57. This is the 56. This is the Beta 57, Beta 56. This is the SM57, and this is one clamp I wanted to highlight to people. So this is called the A56D clamp. So you can pretty much use this on any percussive instrument because these claws almost will fit on any instrument that is out there. Yeah, so this is how it looks when you put it on the snare drum. I myself have at least about 8 of these clamps, which I always carry with me. At the moment, I use them for my PA tuning and stuff like that. But very, very useful clamps. This is the A56D clamp. So now here you have different positions of snare, and I have some sounds from this mic and sounds from the position here. We'll listen to that. This is the Beta 56. So especially when you don't have much place to fit a mic, because there are a lot of cymbals or the hi-hats are very low, then this Beta 56 with this A56D option is the one to go for. And this is another option. This is the Beta 181. Okay, so we are using this mic also today, but we are not using it as a snare mic. We are using it as an overhead mic today. So I'm going to play this audio for you. Let me change this back. Give me a second. Okay, so this is the first mic that is very close to the head. Okay, we'll listen to the second one, which is at position number 4.
Ali,
we could not hear the audio.
We couldn't hear the audio.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have to, in the presentation, in the Zoom settings, you just have to
share view options. You have to share the audio. Share screen.
Okay, 1 second. Share computer sound. Okay, there you go. See it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is position number 1. And this is position number 2. Okay, so we'll try 1 again. So 1, you hear a lot of resonance, you hear a little slight boomy sound. That's because the microphone is very close to the skin. So some proximity effect which you get, that is the build-up of lows you get from this position number 1. We'll try it again. You can hear that overtone. And this is the second. So a lot more attack, a more natural sound of the snare.
Only when you're saying second, it's position number 4.
No, position number 4. Yeah, 2 and 3 we are not. It's a gradual difference, but the big difference you can hear between.
Today we have placed somewhere between 2 and 3.
Somewhere between 2 and 3. Yeah. So this is, I used to always place the mic around this number 1, between number 1 and number 2 sometimes, like especially if you do rock or you do metal where you want a very fat kick drum, snare drum sound. So the position at number 1 is better. But if you're doing pop or sometimes even in the Bollywood circuit, because there's so much else happening in that area, so position number 3 and 4 generally works better over there. And even for things like when you do percussion, right, Pramod? Your dholak and tabla and all that, usually a good 2-3 inches away from the
Yes, but for Baya and all, we would like to have a position 1 because
position 1 because you get proximity effect.
Proximity,
correct. Okay. Okay. So this is about the snare drum, and today we have a PGA 57 on the snare. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay, here we are. So tom mics and tom mics placement. So similar principles to the snare, but the thing in the tom is you want to pick up the resonance from the tom. So you can go actually from very close to the skin, and if you want to get a lot of the tone, But if you want to get more of the stick sound, more of the attack sound, so again for rock or metal, then you pull the mic away. And if you want to get more of the body of the tom, then you can come a little closer to the skin. So over here, but for toms, you have to be careful that it's not too close because it can start sounding a little muddy. Okay, especially on floor tom. So you have to be a little careful that the mic is not too close to the head. So over here, certain options for toms that are there is the PGA 56, which we are using today, PGA 27, SM27, Beta 27. These are all for studio. The Beta 98 AMP, that is this one. So it comes with the 98 head attached to a preamp, and you just connect your XLR. So the clamp and everything comes along with it. Beta 98 DS is a different version of this Beta 98 mic, and the DS version is generally used for percussion. But it's the same capsule. The only difference is this one has the preamp attached to the mic. The other one, the preamp is separate. Or you can also use the Beta 56. And another option is the PGA 98D. That is this mic. Yeah, in the last picture. So any of these three microphones work great for toms. This is a famous drummer, Simon Phillips. This is his setup from his recording studio. So he's got all, these are in fact KSM 27s, 7 of them across all the toms. You can see the height away from the tom. It's almost like 4 inches away. You know, it's an incredible video. If you guys want to watch on YouTube, this entire video is there on YouTube. So you just type in Simon Phillips and Shure microphones, and this video will come up. It's a pretty interesting video to watch. You can see, look at this tom number 4. Look at where this microphone is. It's almost like, you know, 4 or 5 inches away from the skin. But he explains why it is necessary to have the mics so high and so away from the toms. And you balance out the sound of the drum kit by actually playing accordingly. Okay, so don't use too much gain to make things louder. If you want to make things louder, you play a little louder. So that's his philosophy a little bit to an extent. But it's a good video to watch. Next is overhead and room mics. Now, in the overhead department, firstly, these are the Beta 181s over here, and this is, I believe, with the, I can't make out from this picture, but it might be the cardioid capsule. Now, in this, with overheads, it's very important that you try and keep them equidistant from the snare. Which means when you play the snare drum, you want the same signal to come into both microphones. Okay, because that will give you an even distribution of the kit coming through those two microphones. So on one side, if one of the cymbals is actually closer to the microphone, it should actually come out a little louder, and that is okay, because that brings out the representation of the kit the way the drummer has set it up. Okay, so point to remember, you can measure it, which is a great way to do it. There is a very well-known drummer from Delhi called Sahil Sareen, who will actually carry one measuring tape with him on all shows, and he will measure from the snare up to one mic and from the snare up to the other mic. But you can do that. Otherwise, you can position both the microphones so that when the snare is played, and if the gain on both the microphones is the same, you get the same volume coming on both the microphones. Okay, so that is this spaced pair kind of setup, and the other one is this XY setup in the center. So XY is more common in the studio. We don't see it too much in the live sound scenario because, you know, it's difficult to put one mic stand in front of, exactly in front of the drummer or right behind. So we use the spaced pair there, but otherwise XY is very, very common in the studio, definitely. As you can see here in this picture, when it comes to capturing room sound, we have some incredible footage from people. Like if you see this picture on the right, so this guy has actually put one corner of his tracking room has a good amount of bass buildup. So he's actually put a microphone in that corner to just capture that bass buildup. And this is actually, surprisingly, it's quite a common thing to do. So you actually capture some of the reflections coming from the wall back into the microphone. And that has to be mixed, but of course you have to figure out the phase and figure out the delay. But it's quite an interesting thing to do. You'll always notice sometimes in some drum rooms, there'll be one point in the drum room where you get a good amount of bass, where the kick drum sounds amazing. it's not a, it's a very common practice to actually put a mic in that area so that you pick up that, you know, that nice big bass drum sound from that area. Okay, so here you've got a pair of overheads. So there's a pair of SM81 mics, and in about 4 or 5 feet at the back is a pair of KSM 137 microphones. You know, and a whole bunch of Beta 98s on the toms and everything. So this is quite a common thing to do also. Again, main thing, I would say, don't worry too much about the time difference between the snare to the toms or to the hi-hats. The one thing which you need to be careful of is the overhead mics with respect to the kick drum, especially in the studio. Okay, so the phase of the overhead mics along with the kick drum, along with the room mics, they should all be phase coherent. Otherwise, you will start losing low end, especially if your room mics are picking up a lot of room sound. Yeah, so you just need to be a little careful about that. So don't play around too much with the phase of the other drums, because that is what makes the drum sound correct. Okay, like if you sit and play the drums, you know, each instrument is not coming to you at the same time. So the tom is coming slightly different, or the snare is coming slightly different, but that is okay. That is the sound of the drum kit. But you need to pay attention to the phase of the overheads with respect to snare, respect to kick, and with respect to the room mics. That is quite important. Various options for overheads. As of today, we are using the PGA 181, again the KSM 353. We have what else are we using? The Beta 181 we are using today. We are using this Beta 27 also. So you'll get to check out all those microphones. So these are just, as a general list, the various options that are there, from, you know, affordable microphones to, you know, absolutely top of the line. So the PGA are the more affordable series. But the thing is, we very often get, when people try the PGA series, the first reply that we get, they are pretty, they're priced very well, but they don't sound cheap. They sound quite expensive. And I think that always makes us laugh, because they actually sound pretty good, these microphones. And room options, so again, PGA 27, 181, Beta 27, Beta 181. And in case you're looking to do an XY pattern, then Shure sells this one XY adapter as an accessory. So you can do standard XY, you can do ORTF for your overhead mics, even for acoustic guitar, for, you know, if you want to record anything in stereo, then this one stereo mic adapter you get from them. It's a pretty cool adapter. Yeah, we'll get into the live demo pretty soon. If there are any questions, we can take them really quick, and then we'll get into the live demo. And for the questions, if you raise your hand, and then I will unmute your microphone. So we can start with Bijoy. Okay, you know what? I think we'll take questions. Just type your questions down in the chat window. I'll put the link once more for the streaming, so everyone can open that link. I think we'll get into the demo, and then we'll take questions later. So as of today's demo, we're using the PGA 57, PGA 181, all the microphones which are highlighted in green. We are using the PGA 52, PGA 56. So 52 is in the kick drum, 56 is on the toms. This is kind of the kit that it comes. So it comes with a 4-piece or a 7-piece kit with all the cables and clamps and everything you require. There's the Beta 27, which is on the kick drum. Okay, so the PGA 52 is inside, and the Beta 52 is the Beta 27 is outside. Then the Beta 181 is one of the room mics, and I think we're using it with the omnidirectional capsule. You can see you get them in omni, cardioid, bidirectional, and super cardioid capsules. So we are using the omni capsule, and we're using also the KSM 353 as the room mic. So this is the combination of mics. So it's 6 mics in total, and we'll demo one by one. Pramodji will mute and unmute, and then we'll just listen to everything together. This is basically what we've set up. Here's the PGA 52. It's inside the kick drum. The 181 the Beta 181, PGA 181, the KSM 353, PGA 57, and PGA 56. Okay, so this is basically the setup in short. And yep, let's listen. So everyone get your headphones on. We'll start with the individual, maybe just the kick and then just the snare, and then room mics one by one, and then maybe just everything together. So there's one question from Gautam which says, how is the snare top bottom sound different from a top condenser and top dynamic sound? Gautam, sounds a little more refined actually when you have the top condenser and dynamic side by side. You don't get a lot of the rustle of the springs, but you get the clarity of the springs. That's my take. So generally, both work. My general preference, if I have the option, is always the dynamic and the condenser from the top itself, because then it does not even bother with phase issues. Okay, Raj, let's just hear a full groove, and Pramod, let's just hear it with the KSM, with the single mic KSM 353, just the one room mic.
So this was just the kick and the room.
Kick and one room mic, yeah. So we can do kick, snare, and the room mics.
Kick, snare, and the room, right?
Yeah.
Okay, kick, snare, and the... Roger, please play.
Okay, let's hear the full kit, like with the room mics and the...
Yeah, I'll switch on the room mics.
Yeah.
I'll now switch on the overheads and the rooms and the toms.
Cool.
So maybe you want him to play the whole kit now?
Yeah, let's
Like,
play the
we'll
full
take
kit,
the whole
Raj.
count. guys, let's give some rest to Roger. So yeah, Fali.
Yeah, thanks, Roger.
Roger, everyone was cheering for you. Like everyone was saying, awesome job by Roger.
Here we go. So yeah, the last one, which was if I have one condenser mic and one dynamic, how should be placed for the kit? Can I use channel 1 to pick up the sounds from the instruments on the right and the other to pick up the... So yeah, it's a 2 microphone drum setup. I would... What would you say, Pramod? I would still go with one in the kick just to get the low end and one above the snare to get the snare and the toms.
Exactly. One thing is clear that you can't do a proper stereo with that because you have two different type of microphones. He's mentioning one condenser and one dynamic. So I would rather maybe go as an overall room mic, not too far from the drum kit
Right.
for the condenser one, and use the dynamic microphone to get the low end from the kick.
Correct. There's another question about how have the microphones been panned? Drummer's perspective or
Panned?
audience perspective? Or
No,
is there any panning? on it?
the overhead is just panned left and right from the
Left
audience
and right,
perspective.
Yeah.
And the room is only single mic, so there's no other
Yeah.
mic which is panned other than the two overheads.
Yeah. Can we show you the Glenn Johns technique? Oh my gosh, we'll have to do a full session on the Glenn Johns technique itself. But that's if I'm not mistaken, it's a three mic technique.
Yeah, but actually, if you hear right now, I played at a time where there were just the room mic and the kick
room
mic,
Yeah.
and even just two overheads and the kick mic. So that is close to Glenn Johns technique, I would say. But my overhead position might change with but that changes with the room and the drummer. Also the way he sounds, the way he sounds, with that.
Right.
So even if you want right now, I can mute the rest of the mics and you can just hear to the kick and overhead mics.
Yep, we can do that. Everyone that's still on the link, we can do that.
Yeah. So Roger,
I'm not on the link at the moment, so
Okay.
My space can be taken by anyone.
yeah, Roger, just play a groove. I'll mute all the mics, just the overhead and the kick mic. So I think we did that. That was the Glenn Johns technique which I had asked, where we had the kick and the overhead. And actually, this sounds very natural if you see. Probably the kind of tone you get for the toms and the snare is so natural with this kind of a technique.
Correct.
I really love this.
Absolutely.
Someone is asking, I think, Fali, can you
Yeah,
explain
there are some
what's
questions. I'm gone right at the back to see some questions there. So one question from Carl is there two mics on top of the snare is better option? The two mics, but considering that they are one dynamic, one condenser. because the condenser picks up a good amount of crack from the springs. That's my preferred way of doing it. But then,
Yeah, Fali, if you remember, like while we were touring on the live gigs, I used to always prefer bottom and a top mic for the kind of stuff we do, we
yeah,
did during that. So it depends from genre
depends
to
on
genre, and
genre, depends on the drummer,
yeah,
depends on the snare sound, depends on
exactly.
a
So
lot
if
of
I
things.
want the snare to cut through, I would I always love to have a bottom mic, but not too close to the snare, a little, say, almost 4 to 5 inches away, and blend both of them together to get a good tight
Correct,
sound of
correct,
the
correct,
snare.
correct.
So it depends.
Yeah. So there's a question here: what is the best wedge position for a drummer, and also with the subwoofer?
Ah.
That's the thing is, look at Roger laughing. You can see.
So
You know,
we best position use a butt kicker and a in ear.
the thing is, the problem is the drums are already so loud, and on top of that, if you want to overpower with another monitor next to you, that means you have to imagine how loud the monitor has to be. It is, I know, normal practice many years ago, but it's not the best practice. It's better to go in your monitors and use a sub. And if you're using a sub, the important thing is that the sub should touch the riser, because it's when it touches the riser that the vibration of the riser gets transmitted to the effect is not the volume of the sub, the effect is the vibration. So just make sure that the sub is touching the riser on which the drummer is sitting, or use a butt kicker and in your monitors. That's a better thing to use.
Yeah,
And if
because
you're
with today's time, uh, uh, even like if you have a loud monitor wedge next to you, even all your mics are going to catch that. So then you also compromise a lot on the what kind of a tone you are getting after that. So in
right,
today long, like we are getting, even the drummers are getting used to this. Like you have or you don't have to put an earphone. Also, you can have a good headphone where you can get the whole bandwidth nicely,
right, right,
and have a butt kicker. You also get good headphones where you get the sub low of the kick.
right,
So,
right,
and
right,
if
right,
you have
right,
a good, you make your earpiece exactly fitting your ears,
right,
then nothing
right,
like it. So you
right,
don't need those subs to be pulled. If you have
right.
the right, you mic it right and balance, put it right in your headphones, the
Correct,
right
correct, correct,
balance. The drummer
correct.
can be really happy with what he's getting. I think Raja has been always happy.
So there's the question here for, can we explain phase adjustments for different microphones? How would you do it in the studio?
You're asking me?
Yep.
Look, basically, what I would say, if I'm using a top and a bottom mic where exactly it is opposite to each other, then while recording itself, I would want to reverse the phase of the bottom mic so that the same signal. It's the principle of phasing. But if for the other phases, I will see that the equidistant, especially the overheads, I have to worry mainly about the overhead phasing. And then I
Yeah.
would record it, and when you zoom it at the sample level while recording, you can actually see the phase relationship. And once you find that, then you can match it after you have printed the track. While
Right.
recording, I'll definitely want to do like that
Right.
rather than messing it too much with it and listening to sound. Like if I have a snare coming from the overheads, also you have to find out the right place where you match the overheads to the rest of the sound, and because they will be the delayed ones because they are the most far away microphone or the
Correct.
room
Correct.
mics. So adjust them according to the close mics
Correct.
is what I would do. Fali,
Correct.
you
Correct.
can add
No,
to it.
and for live, if you have the easiest way and the fastest way is to just record a bit, and then just zoom into the waveform and adjust slightly. But otherwise,
So you know exactly what is
yeah, so
getting
you know
delayed or what is
exactly,
the
you know
problem.
what is getting delayed.
You
Accordingly,
don't have
you
to play
can,
the
yeah, you
assumption
figure
game.
figure out the delay time and then enter that on the console. That way, then you can delay a line. If that will be the fastest way. Otherwise, there are some live plugins you can use. Waves Live is there. There are a couple of plugins you can use. Otherwise, just use your ears, wear your headphones, put everything into mono, and play with the delay where you hear the most low frequency. At that point, the delay is correct. That's basically how you do it. Live.
Chiku is asking a question.
Yeah. There's one question as to why there's one misconception about the PG equipment. And yes, there was the regular PG microphones earlier, which were discontinued some years ago. And there is now the PGA. So these are all PG Alta. They're not the same microphones that were there many years ago. They're completely redesigned. They don't even look the same. They don't. They definitely do not sound the same. So it's a completely different. It's a completely different microphone from the previous PG series. So this is the PGA, PG Alta series. Yeah. So that I hope that answers that question. Um, what else is there? Where is Chico's question?
He's asking, assuming the drum kit is tuned right and the microphones are placed right,
Right.
do you do anything on the board to give the listener a more immersive feeling? Actually, right now I have done nothing. Just use the basic gates as I showed while we started. But again, we are in a recording studio and we are in a controlled environment. The monitors are tuned to the room. So whatever I'm listening to the monitor, I am confident that that's what is coming to you. But in terms of live environments, yes, you might have to do some things because you might not have the PA exactly as per your taste and the way you want. But eventually, there the primary motive is that whatever is coming out of the PA has to be. That's the only way to gauge it. So, listening to what I'm getting on the PA, I would prefer to do some things with the microphones and the positions, but you are always in a limitation of time over there. So if you don't have too many things under your control, then you end up using your processing techniques to make it sound good over that PA. But there we are just focused on that PA itself. So yes, that happens, but it's always the best thing. I always find that use the minimal processing and get the right sound out of the by using the right mics and the positions.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a question here about drum screens and how does it help? It definitely helps the singer that's standing in front of the drums.
Yeah, if you have a loud drummer and that is, especially on live, what happens is if you have a small auditorium, small stage or something, and the drum sound is going to get into all the microphones. So that is where we use the drum screens, and especially if the vocalist is standing right in front of the uh, drummer. So his microphone is having a lot of gain on it, and you are doing some processing, some compression on it. So obviously it's going to catch a lot of bleed from the drums. So the screens do help there. But if you ask me personally, I really don't like the screen because it adds to a lot of reflections coming inside. It changes the tone. What is coming for the drum kit changes what is going on to the drum microphones. But you have to lose something to gain something. And better is when drummers also understand that it's a soft thing. The best thing is if you can tell the drummer to play a bit softer. And
Pramod, from experience, we know that never works. Telling a drummer to play soft.
See, Roger is laughing. No, it works. At times, it depends on, also when you're playing live, the energy and everything changes. You can't keep in tap because suddenly the show has gone into energetic and the main singer is looking at the drummer and making him, doing some signs to him that where's your energy gone, and suddenly the drummer comes out. So yeah, you have to work on whatever works the best at that point of time.
Cool, cool. There's one question from Reno, which is for cymbals and hi-hats, should I use low cuts on my microphones or my mixer to record or add high, or I think he means, should I do a low cut or should I add more high frequencies?
It's always subtractive EQ is always the best.
Subtractive, yeah.
Never. Like first try to cut some things rather than adding anything.
Yeah.
So
Cut
low
and
cuts and
boost
doing
your
on
gain. Yeah.
the difference between doing it on a microphone and a console. Yes, when you are doing it at a microphone level itself, you are not adding
You're
any
not boosting.
phases.
Yeah, you're cutting in any case.
Yeah,
on
you're
the
cutting,
microphone.
and also like when you're doing it on a console, you're also playing with the phase of that signal. So yeah, that's also electronic, obviously. But at the microphone level, if you have a low cut, it's always good to use that first.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. what's the advice as far as so a couple of questions here with regards to electronic kits. So why don't we just start using electronic kits, and what's the idea on triggers? Maybe Roger can answer that. We can turn on his mic. Roger, what would you ever play on an electronic drum kit?
Hello,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, the bottom line is acoustic is what you are, what you can produce. Electronic has it all there for you. Of course, it's good in certain situations where you get 100 snares to choose from, 100 kicks to choose from. It's great sometimes for recordings too, but when you're on stage and live, and you're an artist like Sonu Nigam sometimes, that live drum sound, what you create on the kit, you'll never match it on electronics. But Pramodji and Fali, what do you think?
Maybe like a hybrid kit is quite
Hybrid is
interesting. A
very
lot of
good.
people using.
You know, we have tried earlier. Remember, Roger, we used to have a drum trigger, kick trigger, especially
We
at
used to
times,
trigger a
because
kick.
you know, at times while touring, if you don't get the right drum kit everywhere,
That's
like if you're going in some remote places, yes, trigger do work, but actually the acoustic sound is the acoustic sound, even if you can get the thing out of. Yeah, Roger?
Yeah, one thing was, like Pramodji said, a kick, okay, fine, you know you can't go wrong, especially if you're playing in auditoriums, concerts and all that, you know. And another thing I would suggest, the cross stick is beautiful from electronic. My God, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, cross stick on electronic.
Like, most of the country and western guys use it, and it never goes wrong. It's fantastic.
So I think the need of the hour generally is, and not at the, I think most people are using hybrid kits now. So it's like a regular acoustic setup, but with at least a kick trigger and a couple of snare pads for samples and stuff like that.
Yeah, Lionel Lewis.
You know, you have to always,
hybrid is actually-
yeah, you know, you can, because it's available now and it's not very complicated to do that.
Yeah,
So you can
yeah,
always
yeah.
have the best of both worlds.
Yeah. I know Darshan Doshi uses a lot of hybrid stuff.
Yeah.
Ranjit Bharat is all Ranjit's cross stick is a lot of it is on a trigger, and on that trigger he adds his own reverb and everything through his sound. So basically, when he plays it, it comes sounding like he wants it to sound. So you don't have to struggle much with getting that cross stick sound. So definitely, hybrid kits are the way to go. You get best of both worlds, basically. So yeah, that's it. I think that we are done for questions. I will just share my screen again for a second.
So can we, Fali, do you think
Yeah.
we can let Roger move out from there?
Yeah, Roger. Thanks very much, buddy.
You can come this side, like.
Come on to the control room.
Yeah.
So guys, this is the Shure India email address where you have any more questions and whatnot, you can email us here. So india@shure.com, very easy to remember. And this is Pramod's Institute, so Sound Ideas Academy online. As you know, everyone is going online these days. So this is
So yeah,
their email
I would
address.
just add, it's
Yeah.
not that we have closed our offline
Institute,
courses.
yeah.
They are there, but we have also started online courses, so it's for
Yeah.
that.
So this is that email address, and few more things is if you wish to do any of our online courses, Shure's online courses, this is the link for the same. I'll in fact copy and paste some of this there in the chat window, so you can have a look. Give me a second. There we go. And well, there are people still trying to connect now. That's like little,
Yeah.
we're at the end.
The concert is finishing.
Concert is over, my friend.
Oh.
Okay, so these are all the links I've just put down over here. I'm sorry for everyone that could not listen, but we'll figure something out definitely, even if we have to figure out emailing these guys and checking what we can do to get a more bandwidth or more people to listen to the link simultaneously. I'm pretty sure it can be done, but we're definitely looking at this being an ongoing thing very soon. So every Saturday we'll do with different musicians. So we have things like percussion, Indian percussion, Western percussion, acoustic guitar, piano, various things. So every week we'll cover one, but we'll sort out the listening thing, that's for sure. And you can be sure the next time we post something that we're doing something, we'd have sorted out this listening issue. So all these links I've put in the in the chat window. We also have a Shore South Asia Facebook page, YouTube page. Roger, thanks very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
I've actually not seen Roger in very long, so it is good to hang out with him over here.
Ali, thanks so much.
No problem, guys. Thank you very much for joining. Pramod, any last words for everyone that's here?
No, thank you. It was good fun. We tried to do this tech thing today. It worked for some, it didn't work for everyone. So definitely next time we are also coming up with a lot of other sessions where we'll be doing some percussions in the same way. We'll be like, if you remember last time we had a lot of questions on tabla and dholaks and where people find some challenges. So as we had discussed, we will come out with these kind of sessions where we can have a tabla or dholak session, or even the percussions, congas and percussions. So let's see, let the viewers also respond on their mails. What would they want to hear? How would they want to do it? And we'll try to do that.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks everyone, and we'll say good evening and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yep.
Take care. Stay safe.
See you guys. Thank
See
you.
Bye bye.
See you, Pali. See you, Pramod.
See you.
Bye.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Chiku.
Bye-bye.